Hello everybody, dancingsean here to talk about The Boys, the Amazon superhero show. We're going to look at the season finale of the first season here, the 8th episode, You Found Me, was its title. This episode has some more reveals, some confrontations between characters, some characters taking a stand. I found there was a theme of mentors, for lack of a better word, some mentor-mentee relationships that were going on in this episode. A lot of identity issues have been a theme of the whole series. The main plot points of this episode were the revelation that Homelander is actually the one behind this Compound V conspiracy, at least the portion of it that is generating enemy soups. He seems to be doing it mostly on his own. He's got the assistance of A-Train and maybe probably some other people. Now, never mind other conspiracies that are going on around Compound V that Vault is behind, but the big revelation here was that Homelander was behind that, not Vault, not Madeline. There's also the jailbreak, Starlight and Huey kind of doing the right thing on the boys' side of things as opposed to the Seven side of things. Then, of course, there's the big showdown, the big confrontation between, sort of a three-way confrontation between Homelander and Madeline and Homelander and the Butcher. And I tell you, that made me realize I have a burning question I can't believe I haven't even thought to ask yet. Who is Madeline's baby's father? I can't believe it didn't even occur to me to think about what a mystery that is, especially when I've thought so much about the awkward relationship between Homelander and Madeline. I guess maybe it's his. That doesn't seem to be the case. I can see why maybe there's extra jealousy from him around the baby. He seems to have a disdain for the baby. Anyway, I don't even really have any good clues or theories about this, but we'll have some more discussion about the Homelander-Madeline relationship and how that unfolded in a moment. But let me start off talking about one thing that I found really interesting, one thing I appreciate was included in the show, which was the scene where A-Train was racially profiled. I think that was a very interesting moment where this character, usually he specifically is kind of used to being famous and revered and respected, but when he's out of uniform here, just a black man in a shop, notices that the cop or the security guard or whatever is eyeing him. He's really offended by it, and man, so many people in society must really go through this, and he at least has this card to play. Hey, I'm famous, you can't do this to me, but the average person just has to deal with that. It's so bothersome. Another humorous moment, I thought, maybe it's still kind of tough when we see A-Train training. I like the idea that A-Train is training with the train. I don't know how much they thought about the humor that was in that, but overall the scene was kind of tough because you realize he's back on Compound V, which is, sort of an issue of addiction, an issue that they're dealing with here, and his brother has a hard time dealing with it. And by the way, his brother is sort of a mentor to him, one of the mentor-mentee relationships that I was picking up on in this episode. Another one, maybe a little weird to think of this as a mentor-mentee relationship, but the confrontation between Annie and her mom. It's interesting to think about. As you watch it, you're on Annie's side. She's kind of the protagonist. She feels like not more than feels like, she's been deceived here. But I, on some level, want to understand where the mom is coming from. She's trying to make the best life for her daughter, and she might have screwed it up. Maybe she's being too controlling, but you can understand her motivations here. And it's interesting to think about. Like lots of kids kind of get involved in something that the parents care about more than the kids, and through the course of it, it kind of becomes the kid's identity. And Starlight is questioning her whole identity. Again, a theme of the show in general. Another character we see struggling here is the Deep, and I kind of realized that he doesn't really have a mentor. Like maybe kind of Homelander, not the best mentor really, but you wonder what kind of background the Deep has. We haven't got much of his history, and you got to be curious what kind of childhood he had, what led him to be the kind of person that he is, and if anything is going to help him break away from it. It seems mostly tragic with him. It's an interesting arc that they've had for this character. Again, reminding me of Game of Thrones, the Jaime Lannister character who starts off, the first thing we're presented with him is just this awful, terrible thing. but then it seems like we're constantly being made to feel sorry for him. It's tough. It's a tough presentation they're making. It's interesting. We get a big reveal here with Butcher going to visit Mallory, and again, this is another mentor-mentee relationship. Mallory has been referenced a couple times. I think we saw her in a flashback one time, and here we have Butcher going to visit her, and it seems like she had the Butcher under her wing at one point on this sort of mission of revenge. Turns out that her grandchildren were killed by Lamplighter, who has retired from the Seven. Whether or not that's related, I'm sure that's been covered up by the PR. We haven't got a lot of information about Lamplighter. We just know that that's who Starlight is coming on to replace. But we could see that, she has something against the Seven and or Vought, and she brought Butcher on. She knew that she could after what had happened to Becca, or what seemed to have happened to Becca. And it's a strong parallel to what Butcher has done to Huey. We get to, and even specifically, he says the same thing that that Frenchie had said earlier, how he feels like Mallory has just used him as a weapon. She just points him in the direction of her target. Interesting, another motif that has continued with that. Huey decides to leave the Butcher. Huey decides that he's just too hell-bent on revenge and just isn't thinking clearly and isn't showing loyalty to the rest of the team. So he has broken away from his mentor of sorts, of the Butcher here. The Butcher is going to go after Homelander with this new revelation from Mallory that his weakness, or his potential weakness, is a person. We've talked about the weakness of Supes before being people, and that Homelander seems to care for Madeline, so Butcher's going to go after her. At the Vought party, we see another potential mentor-mentee relationship, which not sure how they're going to flesh this out very much, at least without flashbacks, but between Edgar and Madeline. We finally see Edgar. This is played by the actor Giancarlo Esposito. And by the way, I think this is the fourth instance I can think of him as being a character that comes in late to a show and is a behind-the-scenes ruthless mastermind character. He played that basic role in Breaking Bad and the spin-off show Better Call Saul, and he was also in The Mandalorian in a similar role. So he really is, got a good agent to find this role of someone who needs to appear, after the story's been established as a mastermind, hidden character in the background. And then we see at that same Vought party, we see Starlight kind of spiraling out of control. She's just, every step of the way, has become disenchanted with the world and the people around her, and seems to maybe have given up, much like Maeve. And then she talks to Maeve, and Maeve's like, come on, be original. This is my gig. You got to be the goody two-shoes. Someone's got to do it. And it seems to work. We see later on that Starlight comes to Huey's rescue. Another humorous little moment there that I want to point out, because we get so little from the Black Noir character, but he sits down to play the piano at the party. It seems like his character just doesn't speak, and hardly anyone even speaks of him. We see him be a capable superhero a couple times, but we don't know anything about his background. Now, we started the episode off with Homelander taking over the Special Ops mission, very sadistically, just taking people out. It seemed to revel in it. It wasn't really even a challenge. It's hard to be proud of what he's even doing, but he seems happy to do it. And he ostensibly plants the Compound V, like maybe they did really find it there, but we know he set this all up. So if he did find it, he found it because he knew it would be there because he gave it to him. But it is kind of perfect, and we see when he explains to Madeline that he did do a lot of masterminding himself of everything that's going on. The perfect timing of this bad guy Soup showing up, and the implications that has for the Supes being able to get into the military, and even the heat that they're starting to take from Butcher and his CIA, it's just washed away thanks to Homelander's masterminding of the whole situation here. And Madeline loves him for it, makes love to him for it in a very awkward way. Again, this relationship between the two of them is so hard to figure out. But he does catch her in a lie. He does insist that she promises no more secrets. And then she says something. She doesn't know exactly what he knows. And she says something slightly inconsistent with what he got from that doctor. And we find out later he must go back and talk to the doctor again to get more details, including the idea that not just the discrepancy between his son and Becca dying as a miscarriage versus in birth, but apparently they're both still alive and well. So Butcher goes to Madeline's thinking that she's his weak point, and his dark plan of hurting her to get at Homelander, which is almost pure revenge, because this probably isn't really going to do anything to slow down Vought's control or make right the wrongs of the Seven or anything else. It's pretty much just a selfish act of revenge. And it's pretty dark. And leave it to Homelander to get even darker. He just kills Madeline himself. And we kind of know why he does it, but I imagine what Butcher's perspective is that, man, if this person might be his weakness and he killed this person, Homelander truly just has no weakness. Now, maybe it was pointed out that reputations are a weakness of Supes in general, but I'm not sure how we're going to hurt Homelander's reputation. Anyone who might be able to is in such danger. He's masterminded so many of the pieces on the board. I don't know what his weakness is. And I hope it doesn't just devolve in the second season or whatever into like a power creep of punch fighting. They just need some Supe that can punch fight better than Homelander. I think that's part of the power of Homelander from like a superhero analysis, which I'm generally less excited about comparing powers of superheroes than I am in the backgrounds and the personalities of them and how society reacts to them and the more character-driven aspects rather than the powers of superhero aspects. But I will take a moment to talk about what makes Homelander and maybe Superman particularly powerful, the certain combinations of powers that they have that someone else might be stronger than them. Someone might be able to beat them in arm wrestling or pick up a bigger boulder or punch harder. But the fact that they have this combination of being able to fly, so someone that might punch fight better, they can just fly away from them. And then once they do fly away from them, they can still engage. Homelander / Superman have these I-beams that they can still shoot at a distance. And someone else with the ability to shoot at a distance, he's bulletproof. So it really does make him a formidable opponent. He seems to be able to outclass pretty much any other superhero. And I hope that they don't just try to make a more powerful superhero to keep this interesting. I hope that they find some other, I don't know how to say this, but psychological weakness or some other edge, some other angle on his goals to keep him in check or to challenge him in some way. One or the other. Something else that happens in this scene is Homelander whispers something to Madeline. And it might have been something relatively simple like, I know what you did last summer or whatever. But I'm curious. I'm curious to know what it is, why they chose to have him whisper that line. I wonder if there will ever be any method to reveal that to us. Another thing about this scene, obviously he just lets the bomb go off, but saves Butcher. Again, very dark. His idea is to hurt Butcher more than Butcher was trying to hurt him. I think Butcher realizing that his ex-wife that he thought Homelander had raped and killed is actually still alive and raising Homelander's son. I can't imagine a worse thing for Butcher to have to deal with. I think Butcher certainly would have rather just died himself. I think he might rather for Becca to be dead than for this to be the existing scenario. But it's interesting that Homelander must have quickly somehow gotten Butcher out of that room to not himself be killed by the explosion. Now, I've thought about this a little bit. Let's say that is the case. Does that mean Homelander let the baby die? And that's not crazy. He has ruthlessly killed innocent people left and right. There were kids on that plane, both planes that he let go down. So it's not crazy that he would let a baby die, and he seemed to have some sort of disdain for this baby. But I do wonder if maybe he might have felt some obligation to Madeline. It doesn't seem like he would. He didn't seem to like the baby. I've been pondering this a lot, but I did reconcile a potential that maybe he threw the bomb out of the room quick enough that it didn't blow up the butcher or the baby. If that is the case, I wonder what will come of the baby. Gotta wonder if the baby had superpowers. There's lots of potentials here, like if that was Madeline's baby by Homelander, which I don't really expect to be the case, but it seems like the baby might have powers. Homelander's other son seems to. It's possible that Madeline was putting Compound V into her own baby. Again, I'm a little suspicious of that because she has kind of seen the effects that it has. She was scared of Homelander, by the way. That was another very dark moment and a good moment of acting too, I would say, on Elizabeth Shue. I think the directing, that whole scene was very well done. It was very, very tense. It's definitely on the edge of my seat. It was, even watching it a second time, I was still like anxious about how it was all unfolding. I think it's really, really well done. But anyway, some of these questions I have here in this last moment lead me into a lot of questions I have about the next season in general. There are a lot of loose ends. I feel like they mostly tied up most of the storylines going on here. Like if the show had just ended in one season, I would have been satisfied. But there's definitely a lot of things to still wonder about. What exactly is going to happen to A-Train? Like, I'm sort of assuming he's not going to just die of a heart attack there. But is he going to come back reevaluating his whole life? Especially knowing that Huey tried to save him. Will he believe that Huey tried to save him? Will Starlight still be lumped in with the bad guys in the mind of Homelander at least? Will she be redeemed for saving or getting credit for saving A-Train? Are the boys still being tracked down by CIA, FBI, the Seven themselves? You know, what are the future of Mother's Milk and Frenchie? Another question I have is, you know, however much they're being hunted down, I wonder, like, how are they buying food? What kind of budget do they have? Where are they getting money? Maybe that's logistics that don't matter enough, but I can't help but wonder about that kind of thing. It seems that multiple times have just, like, burned up all their resources. I gotta wonder what hidden resources they have that allow them to keep getting hotel rooms and gasoline or whatever other resources they need. But we gotta wonder what the fallout will be from Madeline being dead. How will that get explained? Who will pick up her role? She seemed to be about to get promoted. Will Edgar tap someone else? Whether or not he does for this role he was promoting her into, who will take over the old role that she had? I suppose there's room for new characters to come in or be featured more. We got to wonder, of course, about what the fallout from the Becca Butcher Homelander whole situation will be. Is Homelander just going to show this to Butcher and then kill him just so he can say ha-ha one last time? Or is he going to just let Butcher go and not worry about him? Because what's he going to do? How is Butcher going to deal with this? How is Becca going to deal with this? Is Homelander going to let the world know this is his son? There's a lot of ways they could go with this. It's very interesting to think about. Almost overwhelming to think all the different possible ways that it could go. A couple lingering things that were barely touched on that I'm curious about and maybe hoping will get fleshed out a little bit deeper are this Lamplighter character. Where is he? Will he rejoin the Seven? As it seems at one point Homelander even pointed out the Seven has gone down to 5, and it seems like it may go down to 4 if Starlight leaves, may go down to 3 if A-Train isn't the fastest man in the world anymore. Will Lamplighter return? Will new heroes come to take their place? I will say I have become aware, I've tried to steer clear of spoilers. I kind of want to assess this on my own for the first time. I don't want to have too much given away or have my thoughts too tainted by the trailers or knowledge of the original comics or anything like that. But I can't help but have been exposed to a couple things. I saw the scene of the whale, the boat hitting the whale, which again frustrates me with how they're treating animals as the butts of jokes. And I also know that Aya Cash is going to be in the next season. Aya Cash, I know from a show called You're the Worst, which is a pretty good show. It's sort of, fundamentally, I guess, a comedy, an irreverent comedy, but it has some pretty serious moments, very poignant, dark, dramatic moments, touches on some social issues, and in addition to being hilarious along the way. But she's one of the central, one of the, I would say, two central characters of that show, and does a pretty good job. So I'm curious to see what kind of role she'll play here. If she'll, hopefully they'll feature her acting ability and maybe some of her comedic ability. I wonder if we'll see more Edgar. I wonder if we'll see more of a role of him play out. And I wonder if we'll find out anything more about Black Noir. We know so little about him. He seems like a pretty intriguing character, and I have a theory that his alter identity is that character Seth, that PR guy. I've been looking out for clues one way or the other. There's obviously no proof. I'm probably stretching to think this, but there's nothing to prove it's not true that I know of. If anyone knows anything one way or the other, let me go. Let me know. But also, let me go. I'm finishing this up, and I want to get to season 2. Hopefully, as I watch those episodes and put out videos on them, you'll keep up with me. Subscribe to my channel, Dancing Sean on YouTube, and follow me on Twitter. I'm Dancing Sean on Twitter also.